Hi guys, and welcome back to Cyber Launch. I'm Phil Wilkinson, and this is a series on building your own AI chatbot in VoiceFlow. If you missed out on the previous one, which went over the basics of how to build a simple support chatbot, then go and check it out here. I recommend you watch that before carrying on, because there is a lot of concepts in there which we are building on top of. In this episode, we're going to go over some more of the advanced concepts. So we're going to be looking at variables, logic, and intents, and then we're going to wrap it all up with using those to build a lead generation system. But before we jump straight into it, if you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe, like the video, hit the notification bell. So let's go. Okay guys, so here we are with our test bot that we were working on previously. So first thing we're going to go over is variables. So for anybody who's not familiar with variables, who hasn't maybe done coding or anything like that before, variables are basically a container that we can use to store data. So if you imagine when you put in, say, your name or a date or something like that, we want to store that in something that we can then reference somewhere else, rather than having to go and just constantly move this name around. We just move the container around, and then we reference what's inside the container. So it's a sort of high level overview of what a variable is. How we use them within VoiceFlow is we have already used some within our previous one. So obviously, as you can see here, we've got last utterance. So that's a variable. So that's a shorter version of the entire input of what the user has put into the bot. Obviously, we don't want to constantly be moving around saying, whatever it is they've typed out. So we use last utterance, and that's like a storage mechanism for moving it about and putting it where we want to. Then we have logic blocks. So logic blocks, we have a few different ones that we can use here. Obviously, end, pretty self-explanatory. It's going to end the session. Conditions can be quite useful. So we might, I'll show you a condition that we'll use in a minute, but we might use these for conversational workflows. So if the response is this, then do that. Else, if it's this, then do that. That's pretty much how those work. Set is we can then set a variable to a specific value. So we'd probably do this more rather than input. It would be based on something that's happened. We then want to change the variable to be whatever we need it to be to run the logic. Again, I'll show you how this works in a moment. Random, probably not going to use this very often. So within VoiceFlow, this kind of creates a randomized path that the conversation will take, rather than it flowing in the way that we want it to. So as I say, at the moment, we're probably not going to really make much use of that. Components. So what we can do with these is if we have a conversational workflow within a large scale chatbot that we want to use over and over again, rather than having to every time sort of put these sort of blocks there, all these blocks there, and keep copying them around, we can turn these blocks into a component, and then all we have to do is reference that component within the path, and it will work as if it was these 4 or 5 blocks here. There are some other deb functions. We're not going to go deeper into those at the moment. So again, these are just separate, like developer like coding functions, APIs. So we're calling an external third-party sort of tool. So this is where we're going to start adding in like Zapier, Make, certain ChatGPT functions if they're not within the scope of the AI response. JavaScript, which can be quite useful for, again, setting variables and doing little JavaScript scripts. And then there's custom actions as well, which we don't really go into these much, but it could be something like we want to like, it's got an example there. We want it to put an image onto something within the chat. So it doesn't crop up very often, but it's just nice to have all these extra functions available to us. So The last one is intents, and this one's really a big one. So this is something that you're going to get your chatbot working and answering questions in a lot more accurate way. You will want to start increasing your intents within your knowledge base, so the chatbot understands the variances within different ways of speaking, and then pass it to the correct place that you want to give it the correct response that you want it to give it, basically. So if we head over to content on the left, and then we've got obviously our intents here. The two that's already always built in is yes and no. So it can be pretty confident that it understands various different ways of saying yes, yes, yeah, yep, yeah, okay, affirmative, certainly, sure. So again, with no, you're going to have the same there. So all the different ways of saying no. Now, for something that we might want to do, is we don't necessarily want it, and we don't necessarily want it to go down the normal route of answering a question and then back into the loop of, backwards and forwards. And to fit in with what we are going to do for this part of the video is we're going to create a new intent, and we're going to have this being we want to book a call, or the user wants to book a call. So we're going to call this call. You call it whatever you want, doesn't really make a difference. It's just a reference for you. Description you can put in there. It might be worth it if you've got like a lot of intents within your chat flow, and or maybe a various ones that are similar named, like to try and get the differentiation between them. And what we're going to do in here, we're going to first of all put in a couple of examples of what a user may input when they mean they want to book a call with someone. So straight away we can put book a call. We can try speak to an advisor, request a meeting. So as you can see, it's not all the same thing. It's not all like book a phone call, get a phone call me back, that sort of thing. We want to try and put it as varied as possible to get the AI generator to then understand the various different meanings that it could have, that all mean this person wants to speak to somebody. So if we then generate 10 examples, and as we can see here, that's pretty much shot it all up to the top. So that should give us enough. We've got 13 examples altogether with our 3 originals. We can go through them and just check that we're happy with them. So place a phone call a friend. We probably don't want call a friend. Dial a number, no, that's not really going to work. Phone someone, no, again, ring someone. So again, these are where we can go through and make sure it's actually doing what we want it to do rather than what it thinks we want it to do. So contact someone, yes, that works. Get in touch with someone, yes, that works. Connect with someone, yeah. Reach out to someone, request a meeting. Okay, so we might also want to try a few different utterances here. So let's add in book an appointment. Try a few more. Schedule a meeting. Dial a number. Again, no, we don't want dial a number. Set up a conference call. Arrange a place a phone call. No, that doesn't work. Get in touch. Contact someone. Connect with someone. Reach out. Request a meeting. Yeah. So they all look a lot better as to what we're trying to do. So if we click on create intent, so now we've got our call intent, and we could do that for various different functions. So common ones are going to be like, what products do you have, or what is your address, that sort of stuff. Right, so from the intent then, obviously we want it to go somewhere. So this is going to be picked up. The intent, you can choose whether they get picked up from anywhere or whether it's only picked up from certain inputs and stuff like that. But this will generally, if we leave it as default, will be picked up from wherever the user types it in. So obviously we've got on the capture, as you can see there, on the little options there, we've got intent scoping, and it'll listen for all intents. So this is going to pick up any of the intents when a user puts it in there. We might have another chat box later on, where we're adding in the contact details from the user, and in that point, because we're collecting variables, we don't necessarily want the intents to be picked up, because it could end up cancelling out of the flow that we're in and going back to, say, like book a call or something else, when obviously we're kind of trying to get the user down this workflow of collecting all their contact information. But we'll go through that at that point. So for now then, we're going to go to from book a call, and we're going to give it a text box and say, and the first thing we're going to ask it is, we're just going to confirm that the user wants to book a call, because the last thing you want, and I've seen this in some chatbot, is where the user has mentioned something that the intent has picked up. Remember, these aren't infallible, so sometimes it'll think the user's mentioned something about booking a call. It'll jump straight into this, and if you don't put in just a capture just to say, do you want to book a call, it's trying to put it into that workflow of we're going to book you a call, and sometimes the user's like, no, I don't want to do that, but it's kind of then stuck in this workflow, and you can quickly lose customers by doing that. So first thing we're going to do then is say, would you like to book a call? And then what we're going to add in there is, to make it real simple, is we're going to use the buttons option, and we're going to have yes, and add another button, and we're going to have no. For the yes, we need obviously intent, so we've got our built-in yes, and the no, we've got a built-in no. Okay, and with the no, obviously we're going to put an action in there, go to block, and that block is going to be our, and back to main loop. Awesome. Okay, but obviously with our yes, so the user said they do want to call, so we're going to then go through the process of collecting the user's information. So this is where we're now going to use our variables, and then we're going to use some logic in a future step in a moment. So first of all, we'll keep this nice and quick and simple, because we're not going to go through the API process at the moment. So we're just going to grab a couple of variables from them. So great. First, can I get your name? And then we're going to put in there. So this is where we're going to change the input. So we're going to capture, but obviously we don't want this to dip out of this process, because we want to capture their name. So at this point, they've said yes, we want to capture their name. In a future one, we can look at, there probably is going to be points where the user does want to go, oh, actually, no, I've changed my mind. But for now, just to make sure it doesn't dip out anywhere else and we keep it nice and clean, we're going to change this to only intents in this step. So we've now got the user's name. We're going to go to a next step, and we're going to go thanks, and then missed a point here, didn't I? So let's go back there. First of all, we're going to capture their name, and we're then going to add it into capture entire user reply, and we're going to create a new variable, because obviously last utterance is not going to be any use to us here. So we want a new variable, and we want to call this customer name. Create variable. Okay, so now we've got our customer variable in here. We're going to go thanks, customer name, please may I have your email address. Okay, so we've got the customer's name. We're going to say thanks, customer name, please may I have your email address. And then what we're going to do, we're going to add in there a captcha. Now this is where we're going to use an entity, which is slightly different from the normal variables. So we're going to go create new entity. We're going to call it email. and we're going to change the data type to email. And what this will do for us is this will validate the email address to a point. It's not going to, obviously, if they put a fake email address in, it's not going to validate, it's not going to go off and test it. But what it's going to do is it's going to make sure that what they've put in is an actual email address. So if they put in, anything other than something at something.com, it's going to go, that's not an email address. Please can I have an email address. And the way we'll do that is we'll go off with our capture email in a moment. So this is going to be the success. And then we've got this other one, which is no match. And we can add in a path. So what we'll do is we'll say in there, please enter a valid email address. And we'll go path. And then we'll basically loop this back round onto itself, into that part there. And then the capture email is going to go off to text. It's going to go. And then what we'll do now is we'll just confirm with the user their details before we would then send it off to our CRM or whatever the case may be. So in this bit, we're going to go, thanks, customer name, please confirm your email is, and then put email in there. And then we'll add in the buttons again. So this is going to be yes, and add a button, no, with no intent. Okay. And then what if it's no? What we'll do is we'll come back over here. We'll go talk. And we'll start. We'll just go. Please confirm your email address. And then from this one, we'll go straight into capture email. So it's just a little bit of error handling on top of that. It looks a bit complicated with all these different workflows all over the place, but it's not too bad. So that's going from no, and if it's yes, then what we'd do from there is this is where we'd drop it into a API function, and that's going to go off to Make or Zapier, and it's going to update our CRM, send an email, whatever the case may be of what we need to do. So that's out the scope of this video, but we will look at that in the next one. Obviously, once we'd do the API side of it, which we will do, I'll say, in the next video, we would then go from success, which would then pretty much go to action to block, and we'd go back into our main loop. So this is going to go back down to here. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Or we could even just put in a little bit before that and say, yep, successfully set up. Somebody will be in touch shortly, just so the user knows that something's happened, to be quite honest. But again, we'll go over that in our next video. So that covers our variables and our intents. I just want to do a little quick touch on some logic. So some very basic logic. What we're going to do is we're going to add in a simple bit to sort of push calls onto our users. So imagine that they've come on to the chatbot, they're asking it questions. They haven't gone through the intent of I'd like to speak to someone or book a call, but obviously our main aim is to get them to book a call so they come and talk to us and talk about getting our services. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to sort of count how many times they've messaged us, and if they get to a certain threshold, we're going to prompt them to maybe speak to an advisor. So what we'll do is we'll use these specially created instances here. I'll go through what these are. So what we've got is we've first of all created a new variable, which is called, where are we? Somewhere in here. Message count, that's the one I want. So new variable called message count, default value is 0. So every time it starts up, it's going to be already the default value of 0. So back to our designer. What we're first of all going to do is we're going to use a JavaScript block, which I've already placed here ready. So in our JavaScript block, nice and simple, all we're going to put in there is message count. Make sure it does pick up the actual variable. So usually if you start typing the variable name, it should come up. So as long as it does that, then it's working okay. Literally, we're going to put plus plus on the end of it. What that's going to do is literally every time it hits this box, it is going to increase the value of that variable by 1. So we're going to go, rather than how this is currently going from there to there, we're going to remove that link, and we're going to take that link out and put it into our new block. Okay. And then from that output, we're going to go straight into our question block. So all it's doing is literally going to bypass the first part where we're normally passing over the utterance to be for the question to be answered, and we're just going to add in this message count first. Now, from that, then obviously we need a way to check if we've hit 3 messages, or 2, or 1, or whatever you want to do. I think 3 is a good way to start, and then just see how many your average message count is before it hits it. So if we go with 3, we're going to use a if block. So again, this is from our logic if condition. Let's put it up here. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to need 2 conditions. So our first condition is if the message count variable is more than 3, then obviously we want it to do something, which is where it's going to go on to offering our user a call. And our second one is what to do if it's not already 3. So we've also got this second condition that we add in. Message count is not 3. So for the first one, you've got message count is greater than or equal to 3. And for the second one, we've got message count is less than 3. So that should work fine for both of those instances. And obviously if it is more than 3, we're going to just go straight to the intent of booking a call, and it's just going to go through that process. Would you like to book a call? If they don't, it's just going to go back to the main loop. If they do, then great, then we're going to capture their details. If obviously it isn't more than 3, so they've only done 1 or 2 conversations so far, then all we're going to do is go straight from that one back to our main loop, and it's going to carry on nicely there. So now we've ensured that our workflow is all set up correctly. Everything's going into the right blocks to be filtered through. So if we do an example, we're just going to put in any old rubbish just to get it to go through the process of 3 messages. So any old rubbish in here, we can see it's going to go through. We can already see it's already gone up from 0 to 1. But it's then gone back through into the loop. So something else in there. Hopefully we should see, is it going to show us? It's not going to show us the next part of it. But yeah, hopefully then on this one, if we go through, it jumps to the call. So this is our third message asking us if we'd like to book a call. So that's our using our logic functions. We've got our variables. We've used our intents. And that's working as we expect it to do. So there you go, guys. That's variables, intents, and logic functions added into our bot. I will, as previously, I'll put that template in the description below. So if you want to download it and have a play around with it and see how it's all working together, that you can do. That's not a problem at all. In our next one, we're going to go over API functions. So we're going to go through the process of capturing our lead information like we did, and then passing it to a workflow like Make to then send us an email, or if you wanted to, you could put it into a CRM system, which is then obviously going to make it useful to us. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.